Hello, everyone. I'm here with my new friend, Dr. Jaban Moore. And let me tell you a little bit about him. We're going to be talking today about parasites as a hidden root cause of illness. So Dr. Jaban Moore is a DC located in Kansas City, Missouri, who works virtually with clients all around the world. At age 25, he went from being an award-winning top athlete in college to feeling like he couldn't even get out of bed. He went to a lot of appointments looking for answers, spent what felt like endless amounts of money on tests and appointments. Yeah, that sounds familiar. But doctors only wanted to give him Band-Aids. He was later diagnosed with Lyme disease and dedicates his practice to helping clients to get to the root cause of their chronic illness. Dr. Moore specializes in Lyme disease and co-infections, PANS and PANDAS, autism, heavy metals, parasites, gut health, mitochondrial support, and other viruses and pathogens. For more information, you can visit his website, drjabanmoore.com. We can post that below as well. Today, we are mostly talking about his upcoming Parasite Summit. So first of all, welcome, Jaban.
Well, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to talk about parasites.
Yeah, right? I might have to change my speaker view here. One sec. Let's see. Hold on. I have it set up for the summit, so it's a little funky looking. Follow host view. Okay. And let's see. Yeah, I love that list of root causes you had there. You know, some of them people are a little more unusual and people don't know much about them, and parasites are definitely on that list. So one of our mutual friends, Todd Watts, knows a lot about him. That's how I kind of learned. One of the major people I learned from. Is this the ebook or the whole summit? Yeah, here we go. Oops. Oh, this is just the opt-in book, eh? Let's see. Do you have the list of all the speakers on here somewhere?
Oh, I'm sure it's on there somewhere.
Okay, it might be a separate link. I always love to see like who's speaking and the topics. But maybe while I look for that, could you just tell us a little bit more? I mean, probably one of the first myths we can bust is that here in America, we don't have parasites.
Yeah, that's definitely a myth. I mean, if you just think about, and it's just this simple, I like to make things simple. Have you ever dewormed your dog, cat, cow, horse, any animal around you? And the answer is yes. Everybody has to do that. Your vets tell you to do it. They tell you to do it yearly or bi-yearly or biannually even. Then we live in the same environment, right? Like we just do, and you're running into that stuff constantly. So we know they're here. You deworm your animals, you got to deworm yourself. And if you're not deworming yourself, then you're missing a major opportunity for health. Testing's terrible. And we hope and pray and want for our gut to be just fine. And we hope that because we live in the United States and we eat clean food and we source it from clean places, theoretically, that we wouldn't have parasites. But we eat sushi, it's uncooked meat. We eat meat that is medium or rare, which is uncooked meat, and definitely can have parasites in it. If you want to get really gross, let some meat sit out for a little bit or talk to somebody that works in a meat locker, a butcher. They're going to tell you some really, really scary stories that makes you really question what you're eating. But it's not just meat. Look at your vegetables. We're getting them from Mexico and India and all over the world. So we're importing spores and parasites from around the world, putting them on our kitchen table. Most of us don't soak our veggies and fruits before we eat them. Most of us don't ozonate our veggies and fruits before we eat them, which makes all those parasites come out. So then we get parasites. And when I ask clients, how many of your friends, especially when I'm talking to people that are more connected, so just to be frank, my female clients, when they're a little more connected with each other, they communicate a little better than my male clients. When I ask female clients, how many of your friends have a gut issue, constipation, bloating, or otherwise? They say 9 out of 10. Okay, so 9 out of your 10 friends have a gut issue, which means they're probably gut-wise immune system compromised. You're not going to be able to defend yourself against this onslaught of toxicity and infections, which leaves you vulnerable.
Yeah, that's really well said. So yeah, I've also interviewed Anne Louise Gittleman. Do you know her? Oh my
Don't.
gosh, you guys have to meet. She's so amazing. She's been in the health field, I don't know, almost 50 years probably. And she wrote a book about parasites. She was having people do parasite cleanses like in the 60s probably. And she was one of the ones who influenced me on this as well. Here, let me stop sharing that. Just you got to do it regularly. And some of my other friends that are herbalists kind of say the same thing. It's definitely not a common idea here. Even me, like I haven't done a parasite cleanse in a while. Gut herbs can be really harsh for me. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that, because it's like, oh, I know I should do it, but I don't really want to spend a month feeling gross. So I'm not going to do
Yeah.
it.
So, I mean, you and I were having that kind of conversation before we even got started here about those sensitive people, because there are so many people out there right now that are ultra sensitive. And I know you're very versed in the mold world. Mold makes you way more vulnerable. Metals and glyphosates are making you way more vulnerable. So, to be able to handle a parasite cleanse, because we think of parasite cleanse as being harsh, which I don't really think it's the herbs that are harsh, because like
Really?
triphala can help with the gut, right? Now, oregano might be a little bit more harsh. Like it burns your skin, so it can definitely burn your gut. But you can find some more gentle things that can go in, like ginger can be a little antimicrobial, but it is also healing and calming in other forms for other problems. So it's parasites. When you go in, you're going to start an immune attack on an infection, but you're talking to a guy who my focus for my entire career has been Lyme disease, viruses, and then it became parasites. Mold was later on for me, and you can slowly bind up mold, right? And kind of just slowly grab it and not necessarily trigger a major chain reaction. Whereas when you go after an organism, it's going to fight back. And that's going to start that immune response. So what I end up doing is pulsing. So instead of doing we're just going to go all in and just try to go, even if it's slow, right? So if you start with one drop of, let's just say, an herbal tincture, para-3 from Cellcore, start with one drop. And then you try to go to 2 drops and 3 drops and 4 drops. You're like, well, I'm starting slow. But the parasite doesn't care how slow you're starting, you're attacking it.
So the response could be.
So the response can just be like this, like just an explosion. Whereas if you do a pulse of a whole dose, so I've given people 90 drops of para-3. So 90 drops one day, stop.
Oh.
So then you stop, you let the body calm down, you let that inflammatory reaction just have be a bump versus a slow increase. Because when I see, especially with mast cell chronic inflammatory response people, I see that even one drop just slowly builds that immune reaction until it goes up, 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 up until it's just huge. And it doesn't really get much done for you if you're only doing one drop at a time. Whereas that 90 drops one day, it might actually give you a step forward. Sure, you get a bump of inflammation, but then it stops and you don't have that growth, because the inflammatory response, C-reactive protein, sed rate, C4A, those build over time. Those don't build in a day. They can go up in a day, but then they go back down, and your body can respond properly and calm back down. And if I do that, so I do a pulse and I take time off, and a pulse and take time off, and I shorten the window in between. So I'm building your body up through pulses versus through titrations. And I've just seen this work way better and be way less harsh when you're just talking about the herbs. Now, other things you can do for this is, of course, you have to add your detox and drainage in there. You have to add in your cellular energy support in there. And you've got to make sure that you're not in a stressed trauma state. So I've been working on recently, like my kind of like starter protocol. So are you drinking clean water? Are you sleeping? Are you out of mold? All these things to make sure you're in a safe place.
Yeah, that's all really interesting. I think I need to learn more about mast cell. I'm in I think some kind of flare up right now. I just can't shake. And probably like you said, it just built up slowly, wasn't really noticing. And now I'm just sort of in it. It's the most frustrating thing. These things. But I like the idea of the pulsing. I know with like kind of the cycle of the moon, you can do different things with parasites. And so I'll usually have my clients like go off and on kind of with the moon cycle. Do you play around with that at all?
I do. I actually built a different full moon cycle than what Cellcore promotes. I built my own, and it's part of my parasite program, and Summit. So it's there for people. But yeah, I mean, parasites become more active and come out of their protective shells. So they create protective cysts to live in. And you can't really get to them well certain cycles of the month. So new moon, full moon, they're most vulnerable because they're out eating. Well, I'm like, good, come out and eat. I'm going to feed you some black walnut.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. I do that. But if you attack them when they're most vulnerable, you're also going to have the biggest war on your hands and the most die off on your hands. So it's like your full moon phase can be, okay, well, we're going to kill in these 5 days, but the 4 or 5 days building into that, we're really going to get your body in an anti-inflammatory and detox the state. So you can do your coffee enemas, you can do your anti-inflammatories, you can do your liver lymph supportive supplements and stuff. You're going to keep doing that throughout the full moon, but you build yourself up, then you attack, so that when you attack, your body can handle it.
I like that. I mean, this work is so complex. And I don't think people, I mean, no wonder people aren't signing up to do this career. Like, it's so complicated to figure out how to, not get the body to over respond and all this stuff. So it's great work you're doing. Okay, I got the screen share going right now. We'll take a look at this, and then maybe we'll take a look at your practice as well. So you can sign up now, but the event starts October 4th. Right away, you do get some talks here. I forget where they said they were, but right away you'll get some talks. It's all free to attend. So you want to tell us about some of your experts and some of the topics, that will be covered on the summit?
Yeah, absolutely. I have some amazing speakers on here. I mean, some of the people that I personally have learned from, that I studied, are on this summit. I mean, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt is a person that I have listened to 100 hours of his stuff over time.
Wow,
He
nice.
is brilliant. He's been way ahead of his own time with just getting into functional medicine. Jay Davidson was a just expert when it came to getting information about Lyme disease out there, just getting it known. I mean, he was kind of the original guy just being online and talking about it loudly. And he's gotten to a point now where he's talking a lot about toxicity and radioactive elements and how these things are suppressive to the immune system. And I'm running a ton of testing, and I actually send it back to Cellcore so that they can see just what radioactive elements in hair, if it's there, what that looks like in your O test and your blood test. And what we're seeing is radioactive elements high in your blood causes weakness looking blood tests. It causes mitochondrial dysfunction or energy system dysfunction in an organic acid test. So I'm comparing blood to urine to hair. And he kind of talks through how radioactive elements can affect your body. Todd Watts was the original parasite guy. He started a whole company based off of it. So these are some amazing guys just on this line that you have right here. And the topics range. So I actually have the days split up into different ranges. So it's parasites and mold, parasites and Lyme,
Nice.
detoxification day, more of a autoimmune and autoimmune trigger day. So there's guys talking about, like Dr. Will Cole, about inflammatory foods and diets that are affecting you, and how parasites can also create some inflammation into that. So we've really separated these days out so that you get a wide variety of information, because parasites are in your gut. They're causing food allergies, causing inflammation, and they affect so many different parts of your body, but they're never alone. They're always with either Lyme or mold or immune, or trauma, right? So emotional trauma. So you've got Brandon Vermeer talking about how you get into trauma circles in your life from emotional stuff that suppresses your immune system, that allows parasites to be there. And then to get rid of the parasites, you also have to address the trauma. So there are so many perspectives here that give you an idea of how to manage your health and how these things are interconnected.
Yeah, you've got some great speakers. I always like to go and look, kind of like helps you get a sense of really what's there to offer. And yeah, there's so many connections. So if you're just kind of going down this rabbit hole of starting to uncover roots of your chronic illness, and you're like, oh, now there's parasites. Well, yeah, there are, because they're all kind of hanging out together, and it's worth learning about. I know you said the testing isn't reliable, but I have done a couple rounds of testing and probably several rounds of different gut protocols. I remember the days where I was like, man, my gut's never gonna be normal, and now it is. So it just can take time as you work through all the layers of damage that's been done to your system. So it's really exciting, like the results that come out of it. And I always say, even if you just watch a few, if you feel like, oh, this, I don't have time, just tune in and catch a few. And if you're like, I need to know more, you can always purchase it. So don't be overwhelmed. Just do I know Richard Horowitz, he's a great speaker. Yeah, just take in what you can, like learn at your own rate. Oh, Jane Barlow, I know too, she talks a lot about doing your parasite cleanse regularly.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and then you've got Cheyenne and Lacey and Lindsay, who all talked about hormones and how parasites can affect hormones. So, I mean, as you're going through this, I'm like, I didn't want it to all be all day, just 100%. Well, this is what a parasite is, and this is how to kill a parasite. It's parasites and how they affect so many different parts of the body, and how they are also how you can effectively get rid of them, even from other perspectives. Like Julie there is talking about diets and being bio-individual to strengthen your gut microbiome. Because you said, parasite herbs are kind of harsh for you. Are there diets that can help you to reduce your body as being, or lessen your body from being a great host for parasites, right? Because parasites need a good host that is vulnerable enough to allow them in. So if we can take away some vulnerability, they're going to want to leave.
I want to hear this one on the CoQ10 and EMFs. That's right up my alley. That's great. Yeah, you've got a great lineup here. Yeah, I always like it when there's some people I haven't heard of. So you're like, oh, I'm going to check that person out. Awesome. Who's this? And Isaac Jones here at the end. Great. So this again, you can just follow the link I put below the video. And I want to apologize. I don't think I have my video settings optimized initially, but I think you guys are all seeing this now. These, I think, are the ones you get right away, right, Jaban, when they sign up? They are.
I wanted to pick some people that were amazing, good speakers. I made sure to split it up to where, I did Parasites 101, so just the basics. So you get an idea of parasites, because this is a new topic for so many people. Because we're all told parasites aren't real, they're not a thing. I'm like, yes, they are. They're a real thing. They're here in westernized countries. I don't care how clean you say you eat. It's in our food.
Yeah. And it's on, like you said, it's on vegetables. And they really, if you have pets, if you garden, like there's lots of ways to be exposed. So I think when you learn a little bit about the history of like modern medicine in the last couple hundred years, we moved so far away from certain beliefs about the body and kind of thought we were above all that. And we were so modern, as if like we've outsmarted parasites by just like, I don't know, modernizing. That's not quite how it works. So they've been around a while. They're still out there. Mm-hmm. You know what? Let's just do one more myth debunking before we go. Some people will say that parasites you're meant to have them. They're part of like a symbiotic relationship almost, and they could be doing some benefit, like eating heavy metals or whatnot. What do you think about that?
I actually agree. I think that parasites are naturally going to be in our body, just like we have to have bacteria, we have to have viruses and fungus. We are a symbiotic bag of microorganisms, and we just are, but they need to not be in a pathogenic state. And the environment that we live in today is so toxic. I mean, I run toxin panels constantly, and I'm looking at environmental toxins, everything from plastics to petroleums to medications. All this junk is in our bodies. If you don't have a lot of it, I'm shocked usually. And I've only found a few people ever that didn't have quite a bit of those things in them when they come in as a new client. And usually those people are living like you. It's like if you called me and I ran a test, you probably wouldn't have a ton because I know that you're going to eat clean. You're going to do your detoxing. You're going to make sure your pathways are open. You do your mitochondrial work, but most people don't. So they've got a ton of toxicity. Parasites see that as food. So then they want to inhabit you to eat the food that you're filled up full of, being the toxins. If you have mold suppressing your immune system, you're going to have more parasites. If you have metal in your body, they come in, they absorb all that toxicity up because it's food, which your body wants them there to do that. The problem is once they're in your body and you're immunosuppressed because of all that toxicity, they start to grow out of proportion to what they're supposed to be. You've taken antibiotics, you've taken antacid type medications. These are weakening your system, allowing parasites out of the symbiotic and now making them into that parasitic side of pathogens, right? So they're pathogenic now because they're out of balance with your body. It's all about balance. So I think, yeah, a couple parasites, a small threshold of them is going to be natural. It's when your body, due to your terrain, due to the environment inside your body is off, that's when parasites become pathogenic, and then we have to reduce them. So when people call me and say, I want to do a parasite cleanse, it's not, hey, we're just doing parasites. It's, let me look at this whole picture. What toxins do you have in your body? Again, mold, metal, environmental toxins. What infections, bacteria, virus, mycoplasma, parasite, what kind of those things do you have? What kind of traumas emotionally do you have? Are you eating enough food? What's your stress level? This is all part of that bucket that your body is. And we have to balance all of those things to get you to true wellness and health. And sometimes, like you said, it can be really, really complicated. And for others, you know, like me, my body genetically and through what I do, it's fairly strong and healthy. But I lived where I was outside all the time as a kid, probably got bit by a tick, got Lyme, had some parasites that were in me. My body took great control of it, never had a problem, was all-American athlete in high school. Then I moved into a basement where I literally remember, and this just came back to me when I was on an interview not too long ago, along the basement in my college apartment that I had rented, because I was in a basement, not only was the smell thick of mold, but it flooded multiple times while I was there. And there was actually mold growing across all of the boards on the bottom. And like, you could just see the water spots, like it was easily visible. And I'm thinking back, I'm like, I got sick there. That's where my throat started getting itchy. That's where I started having fatigue. But I moved out of that, went to chiropractic school, the stress bucket. So now I have all these things in me, mold got in me. Then I go fill the stress bucket with chiropractic school and boards. And then I finally break. And that's when I found mold. But symptoms were stacking. I just thought I was like stressed and old at 23.
Yeah, right. You're like, is this, you know, and I'm sorry this all happened to you, but I kind of love it when someone's just sort of like this all-American athlete and they get taken down by the same stuff, because I think we can be sort of dismissed in this community as being like frivolous or whatever. But this can happen to anyone, you know. Wasn't it Tony Robbins got really sick from sushi and heavy metals? Like, he's a big, healthy looking guy, and you know, it can take you down. The example is great with, you know, how it slowly built up. So many college students get exposed to mold because they're just living where they can afford. So never live in a basement. That's just like rule of thumb. I don't even want to ever have a basement again. That's like, you know, but when you're in college, you're just like, whatever. I remember my ex-husband was like, oh, I found like a futon in the alley and I like used that as a mattress. I'm like, that's disgusting. But you almost think it's like cool or something when you're that age.
It's a badge of honor to be able to survive anything. And I mean, we didn't turn the heat on in the winter. It was 54 degrees, 53 degrees down there. In the summer, we didn't turn the heat on until like we were going to bed. I mean, it was get by, which I'm glad that I have the ability to do that. I'm never doing it again. I put in my dues. I've been through the sickness, and like you said, it can take anybody down. I mean, I don't want to brag about this, but like after college, at moments I drank more than I probably should have, but I couldn't get hungover. Like once I got well, I couldn't get hungover. Like I could drink. My friends were mad because I could drink however much I wanted, would not get hungover. My body detoxes greatly. Once I got back to being well, and I'm still there, not that I'm testing it anymore, but it's amazing that there is a level that can get anyone sick. And it's not just these, I hate to use the terminology, but like weak bodied or snowflake, whatever people call people that are worried about all this stuff. It's not them. It's anybody. Now, there are people that are more sensitive. Absolutely. My fiance is way more sensitive no matter what I do for her. But genetically, we look at this, and it was said to me once, and I read a Ben Lynch book, and it all just kind of clicked in my head. And Ben Lynch described the way that certain genetics are those people that are your canary in the coal mines. They're sensitive. They drink a little water out of a pond and they're like, oh, I feel my stomach's sick. I feel bad. Now they don't die from it. They just feel bad. I'm not that person. I wouldn't notice. I would have this massive infection. I'd been drinking it for a week. I would die of a heart attack because of inflammation. Whereas my fiance would get a stomach ache. I'm like, oh, well, neither one of us should probably drink that water. Let's not drink that water. Let's do something else. Let's boil it, whatever. She is the canary in the coal mine. She's the alarm. I had no idea there was mold in my house. She came over and in a few hours got a headache. It happened a couple of times. We started looking, found mold in my house. I had no idea. I didn't know. It didn't bother me a bit. We cut it out, of course, got rid of it professionally. For everyone listening, professionally, we got rid of it. But she's that canary in the coal mine. Whereas I don't get knocked down by much of anything, but I would die from a heart attack eventually if I didn't get, somebody.
Right. Those people who seem to be like healthy as an ox.
Yeah.
Those are kind of, they're just going to keel over one of these days. They're like, you're in stage 4 cancer. And you're like, well, crap, where did that come from? So exactly. It's a blessing and a curse to be the canary. I'm more the canary and become way more of the canary after all my exposure. It's annoying, but it does help you. I feel like I'm like the healthiest sick person there is, because like I'm so good at like avoiding everything and detoxing all the time. But I still am sensitive. Like, unlike you, I haven't totally like just tossed it off. But yeah, we're all different. We just have to respect where we are. And hopefully I think we are respecting each other more and more now. Like when I first had mold, I was kind of embarrassed to talk about it. And now if people ask me why I moved to Arizona, I tell them in a very simplistic way. And I'm like, well, have you heard of this? That's why I moved here. And nobody ever gives me any lip about it. They're sometimes never heard of it. They're like, huh. But I feel better now to be like kind of spreading this awareness. And then some people have heard of it and they're like, oh, I've heard of that. That's really bad. And similar to you, when you talked about how parasites can be around, but they shouldn't be around so much. I feel like mold is similar in the way, we're just more vulnerable now. We're exposed to a lot. Our houses have Wi-Fi and they're off gassing. And then we're in an unnatural thing, which is a home built out of drywall. So it lets mold, which is a natural thing, become a bit more of a predator on our bodies. So it's just I loved how you explain that. And I just think it can help people understand, like, yeah, this stuff isn't in your head. I think it's affecting all of us in different ways. Like you said, why are cancer rates and obesity rates and ADHD rates all going up? Well, I think we can look a lot at these toxins. So this is another great opportunity to learn on your summit. I'm so excited you're having it. Congratulations on your first big event. Any last things you want to share before we close up here?
You said ADHD, so I got to jump in on that for a second.
Go for it.
I work with a ton of kids with pandas, which is an autoimmune encephalitis, so an inflammatory immune reaction that hits the brain. And because we were talking a little bit about mold and parasites, I did a small study on a bunch of pandas clients that I know have it, or at least I know they have autoimmune encephalitis, because there's a lot of medical terminology trickery in there. But anyway, long story short, there's a reason these kids are having neurological symptoms. And 70% of them tested positive for mold when I ran a test on them the very first time. So 70% on the very first test were positive. And as you know, sometimes it's not positive until you start detoxing and draining. So this is like my pre-test, 70% were positive. And that's for depression and anxiety and OCD for these kids. And with the massive skyrocketing of all these kids' neurological issues, how much of this is mold or parasites? If we can take care of that, can we give kids a non-medicated, much better life that they are in control of because you gave them health by getting rid of the junk out of the way. So anyway, I had to say that because you said ADHD, and I have a passion for all these kids because they don't have a choice. As an adult, I have a choice if I feel bad to go to a doctor and make a decision on how I want to be doctored. Kids don't have that. So
Yeah.
I have a passion to educate that there are options for kids too.
Yeah, I love seeing parents who are dedicated to finding those answers and changing the diet and changing the household habits. I think it's like the most beautiful thing. And yeah, they're brought into this very toxic world nowadays without really signing up for it.
Yeah.
And I think we do owe it to them to do better by them and give them, I'm fortunate I have a really healthy son, but like just as a community, we need to be thinking about legislation and I think and everything like, we kind of protect all of us. So from from like these kids getting this exposure so young. So great point. I want people to join the summit. So then you'll get more familiar with his work. I think there's some things on autism and such on your summit, correct? And then you can always follow up with Jaban afterwards. He's got a whole team of clinicians, which is a great resource if you're really struggling with your own issues or your child's own issues. So thanks again. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us, and I'll be tuning into the summit for sure.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.